Hey friends, Ernie here from the Trader of Futures. Trying to mix it up, the intro. No outgoes though. Today I want to talk to you about fraud and what I believe is systemic fraud of Bitcoin price manipulation through the use of Tether. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of the very specifics, but let me just say that I am currently reading a report that was produced by two people, John M. Griffin and Amin Shams, released just a couple of days ago, actually released yesterday, that details their analysis, scientific analysis of the in-goes and out-goes of Tether and Bitcoin, and how it's circulated through various exchanges, unregulated exchanges, and how it's correlated with Bitcoin price increases as well as stabilization. And the primary purpose of this report is to determine whether or not things were pushed. In other words, money was artificially printed and then pushed out onto the exchanges, or it was demanded by investors. In other words, it was exchanged through through cash or U.S. dollars or some other currency, and then brought onto those exchanges. And the report, at least so far, has put forth the hypothesis, and I've looked at some of the, I guess you could say, tests and proofs that they've gone through that pretty much determines that it was, in fact, pushed in virtually most cases. In other words, systemic fraud of pushing Bitcoin price up. So this isn't really, I guess, surprising news to me. I've been developing a very different look at Bitcoin and whether or not it's something that is something our society actually needs, and trying to look forward from a philosophical point, whether or not this is something that will eventually deteriorate our society. And, and then brings to question who's actually bringing this forth. Is this being pushed by some government? Is this simply a fraudulent scheme? Or was it hijacked by people who found a way to turn it into a fraudulent scheme? I think it's a little bit of all of those things. But the fact is that Bitcoin price is going down, and I know that there are a lot of pundits out there that are predicting some kind of bottom and that it's going to shoot up. And even I had a prediction that by the end of the year that it might hit 30,000. At this point, I can't imagine how it could possibly hit 30,000 given this new information. And of course, we know that Tether, the company, has been resisting any kind of audit. In fact, there hasn't been any kind of audit, and it becomes, very understandable. It's difficult for the SEC to crack down on stuff like this because a lot of these exchanges are offshore. Tether itself, I believe, is out of the Caribbean, and Bitfinex and others that, let's just say, Bitcoin and virtually all of the altcoins that are based on Bitcoin pricing are frauds. Their price, the demand, the run-up, the manipulation, everything is the result of fraud. What I'm seeing here is perhaps one of the biggest cases of fraud in U.S. history. Perhaps 150, 200 billion, maybe $300 billion of fake money is out there that other people have used to redeem for real money, including myself. Unwittingly, of course, we go to an exchange like Coinbase and we want to turn our crypto into fiat so that we can actually use it in real life. So what I plan on doing is producing another series of videos that start talking about this from a more philosophical point of view, even aside, from the fact that I think, there's conclusive or a building conclusive case or a building case that Bitcoin is a fraud, that most of the altcoins are frauds. I'm not saying that the technologies are fraudulent, although many of them are. They're nothing more than copies with fake companies that have been built up with a white paper and a website and a bunch of marketing. I put EOS in that category. That even, one thing that I really want to do is I'm going to start interviewing CEOs of various companies and have them explain to me exactly how they're going to achieve some kind of ROI with these distributed ledger technologies. A distributed ledger in of itself is not anything new. A blockchain is not new. It is nothing more than a linked list. As a matter of fact, I have developed many, many programs in the past that use linked lists and use a hash of the previous content to use as the key for the next link in the chain. I mean, this is something that is standard practice for a long time. To somehow think that blockchain is some miraculous thing is just ludicrous. And now that it's being exposed, basically it has been a masterful marketing fraud, a snake oil salesman type fraud that has just sort of hyped up, the potential of what blockchain could be. That somehow it's going to be bigger than the internet. It's all fake. Every bit of it is fake. Decentralized cryptocurrencies in themselves, in order for them to work, would require some kind of centralized agreement on regulatory commands across nations. That in itself is antithetical to decentralization. Decentralization is not the key. It's not the key to future prosperity or individual wealth. The whole idea of removing people from the trust equation is not the key to human evolvement, to cultural evolvement. It is the anti-key to such things. It is the dystopian view. And we're being sold something completely different. Anyways, that's all I have to say for now. I'll be recording another thing later on today that will talk more about this sort of philosophical view. We'll see you next video.